What is our purpose in life? Does anyone have the answer to the problem?
What am I? I'm in the life. And I get it mentally on where am I?
Well, let's just settle the second question. Who can remember more specifically what we said?
An individual consciousness or manifestation for the divine consciousness?
Right. An individual expression of divine consciousness. And the third question, where am I? Where are we?
Here and now?
Here and now. In right.
Universe surrounded by love and self. Find consciousness.
Now the Bible says where we are very, very distinctly. What does the Bible say? Where are we located? About being in God, in infinite love intelligence, according to Matthew. And what is our purpose in life?
Beneficial principle.
Right, and the spiritual guide.
That's very specific for this group, right?
All right, was there anything else we were talking about last week or the week before that is challenging or puzzling? Or
Lots of challenge.
that is challenging. Little is puzzling.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
But I can't.
Self-confirmatory. Have you given it some thought? Yes? Do you have any questions concerning that concept? Now, self-confirmatory ideation, the concept of it, is particularly important for spiritual guides. Because if we are going to work with religiously inclined individuals, it is not unusual to come across people who can quote the Bible backwards and forwards and are very religious, and their whole mentality is taken over by biblical and theological concepts, and they may give the impression of being really on the spiritual path. Jesus Christ, the name of Jesus is constantly on their tongues, and they behave in certain ways. Yet, there is something strange about them. I remember in a mental hospital once I was consulted about a young man who was a convert from Judaism to Christianity. And this young man looked very sincere and walked around with the Bible all the time and constantly used quotations from the Bible. But people were extremely irritated by him. And he couldn't live right. he was constantly in trouble in life with his family, and occasionally he would also hallucinate a little bit. But you don't have to have a hallucinating individual. It is enough to see that these are the cases which are diagnosed as pathological religiosity. Now the question, sometimes it is very difficult to know whether such an individual is sincerely religious, spiritually minded, or is he sick, mentally disturbed? Now, how can we tell?
Wait down.
Yes?
Say, why your existential validation?
Could you explain that?
Well, what you were just saying is that if people are turned off by them, that they're constantly running into trouble with lights, and
Yes.
there's something wrong,
Yes.
basically with their whole circuit.
Of course, sometimes people are turned off by healthy evangelists too, if they happen to have a different mental attachment. But one thing is crucial in recognizing pathology, namely the element of self-confirmatory ideation. When an individual, no matter how theologically sophisticated, maybe, if you listen to him, and you find that he is constantly exploiting his knowledge for his own self-aggrandizement and referring to himself overtly or covertly, cruelly or in subtle way, when he is bearing witness to himself under the disguise of bearing witness to God or to the truth, then you will know that there is a serious problem here. And sometimes it can be very subtle. Of course, sometimes it is crass and quite clearly recognizable. But the so-called differential diagnostic point in such a situation is discerning the element of self-confirmatory ideation. Help requires self-transcendence. A healthy, spiritually minded individual loses himself in Christ. But a pathological example of religiosity, there is no self-transcendence, there is self-confirmatory ideation. If we understand this important differential diagnostic sign, we will also know how to help such individuals. See, in metapsychiatry, we have no special techniques except for principles. And one of the principles is, if you know what, you know how. If we can discern the problem, if we understand the process of being healthy, of being truly spiritually minded, or if being confused about it, we will know how to approach this individual in a helpful way. What do you think would be the helpful spiritual guiding approach to an individual who manifests symptoms of pathological religiosity? Anybody?
He said it. I should think that one way would be by one's own example of, to use the terminology within the class, of becoming a beneficial presence. I guess there's not much of a stronger impression made on someone else than the way in which there's not a stronger impression that I can make on someone else than the way in which I perform within my own sphere in the world. And if I'm a beneficial friend, then that, I should hope, would have some influence on
well, that's a very important point, and it is fundamental. It is understood that a spiritual guide has to have attained that integration where he is, by the very quality of his presence, beneficial. But beyond that, just if you want.
If we were talking about how we help our children after
Yes.
if they make a mistake, you let them know it's because they're ignorant.
Yeah.
If they're successful, it's
Yeah.
because of God.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not quite sure how to apply this. I think this would have some application.
Well, as we have already mentioned, we have to know what constitutes healthy spirituality. And we mentioned that the main feature of healthy spirituality is self-transcendence. But there is also another element which is very important. For instance, in the Bible it is described that Jesus was accused by his listener. And it says that thou bearest witness of thyself, therefore thy record is, thou bearest record of that, but therefore thy record is not true. See, the Bible already clearly says that if anyone bears witness to himself, then his spirituality is not authentic. Now, what did Jesus answer to that accusation? No, but specifically he said something. Anybody?
Ron, I said it's all the
Good. He said, though I bear witness of myself, yet my witness is true. For I know where I come from, but ye know not where ye come from. Now what does that mean? And how does this relate there on our work of spiritual guidance?
Maybe continue a dialogue that could and then become the offenders.
That's right, exactly. But can everybody see this point? If not, please say so and we'll talk about it. Here again, the importance of bringing home the 4Ws in such a way that the realization might take place in the patient, the individual, as to who he is and what he is and where he is and what his purpose in life is. If there is that basic understanding of our identity, of our substance, of our presence, and of the quality of presence, then self-confirmatory ideation will cease to be a problem. Now, it may take a certain amount of creative intelligence to be able to communicate this to an individual. But that cannot be thought. That comes through inspiration, based on the purity of motive in the therapy. Right? Purity of motive makes it possible to be inspired from moment to moment with conveying those such ideas in such a way that it might become meaningful to an individual in distress. Can anyone here remember a definition of inspired wisdom?
In the Bible or
We mentioned it here about 3 weeks ago, right? Now look up in your notes.
They do it now.
I'm acquiescing to your note taking.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We can always renew.
Well, those are very nice qualities and desirable. But you see, what I'm trying to bring home the fact that in order to be helpful to a patient, we have no techniques to resort to, because that psychoanalysis and that psychotherapy, according to certain preconceived lines of technical approach. But in spiritual guidance, we have another thing to rely on. Something much better. Yeah, body.
Just
Arrival of the doctor getting investigated.
Well, we called it inspired wisdom.
well, that's paper. That does not get
Or, would never.
Right. But it would be nice if you would have a clear understanding of it and a definition of it. You have it, yes?
yeah, Hegel, shit, here it is, like that. It's creative intelligence obtaining in a receptive consciousness from moment to moment under the name of Hegel.
Right. Do you remember it? Inspired wisdom is creative intelligence obtaining in receptive consciousness from moment to moment under conditions of Hegel. And what is Hegel?
Nature of correction.
Right.
Sorry.
Very good. Now, this is the requirement for a spiritual guide to be able to communicate meaningfully with individuals who are in need of guidance. It's a spiritual method. Of responding to people. And of course, we can all acquire it. It can come to us. How can it come to us? Recollection? No. It can come to us only when we have given up relying on our feelings, on what we know, or what we think, or what somebody else has thought, or what is in vogue, or what is official, etc. Inspired,
Those things that we cherish.
right. You see, inspired wisdom comes to us when we are willing to rely on God unconditional. And that is also another way of speaking of the open mind. And we had some hassles about the open mind already. Yet,
I'm the perspective. I'm trying the wisdom that we have in maybe during all of that, which we process, certainly not talking as close to the individual who says, oh, I really don't need anything, I don't need anything. To prove myself, I connected with God. Those seconds didn't, I didn't feel it. When it beckoned to you, and signed already, and always clean.
Yeah.
We do things without something. Allow himself to grow. Now,
yeah. So which necktie are you going to wear? Nobody said that we must live in ignorance. Heidegger speaks of Gelassenheit zu den Dingen. Who knows German? What is that? That? What does it mean? It's a very interesting concept. Gelassenheit zu den Dingen.
So so no, so sit there, it's a selfie.
You're dying of curiosity.
At this point, yes.
It means it is all right to have everything, to have technology, to have possession, to have information, to have filing cabinet, to know about everything, as long as we're not clinging to it. So we are not advocating ignorance, but we are advocating freedom. And we're advocating the open-minded receptivity to divine intelligence. Yet,
I think one thing you said God and then said 78 left. I would fire. I would interesting. I had said it anyway. That's a spirit. That's
right.
That's that.
It's a pretty good loophole. And that's what makes such a narrow road to walk.
So let's come back to the appreciation of the concept of self-confirmatory ideation. It's a diagnostic criteria for pathological religiosity and also for all forms of pathology that we can run into in life. Now, one of the forms of self-confirmatory ideation which we frequently encounter in academic circles, whatever area of knowledge we are involved in, is the cherishing of what we already know. And it is very hard not to lean on what we already know. There is nothing wrong with knowing. But we must be alerted to the tendency of leaning on the known for a sense of security. But that security is at a great price. If we lean on what we already know and cling to it, then we cannot learn anything new. And certainly we are not open to God. We are not open to inspiration. And our lives become less and less creative and more routinized. Among psychotherapists, psychiatrists, we can distinguish two kinds. One is the artisan, and the other is the artist. You all know the difference? Now one could imagine even the spiritual guidance that some individuals might become artisans. We certainly know that clergymen, many clergymen are just artisans. They perform perfunctorily certain services, and their sermons are boring, and they seldom come up with an original idea, and their lives are uncreative. To live and to work creatively is necessary. And their lives are uncreative. To live and to work creatively is necessary to lean on God. And that requires a little courage.
No, a lot.
It's like trying to float on emptiness. But once we have learned it, it becomes easier. And then life becomes most interesting. And we are never bored. And more than that, we are not boring. It is worse than being bored. So is this concept fully appreciated? Have you observed it in your life? Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I work a great deal with the organized church, yeah.
Yes? Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've observed it more often than I like.
Yeah.
Artists.
There are a few, however, artists as well.
Yeah.
They do become by church.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you are like what occurs in between capacities with what God has that one He's first to human being. Until that God is one and realize that He doesn't have to even though He is the God to human direct from God. Because they sometimes people live so far from appreciating Himself and way, so slow to go. There's a verse that has to be in people standing on and wait till they until there's a moment something to be corrected.
Well, it's not clear really what you're asking. Are you? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Just can't find
Yeah.
people that I've had that experience with others came up. So now I feel like it's really time to become wrong. And I've come on my own.
Yeah.
And that's just be guided helps in terms of and what it is to find what's in terms. Because it makes big things, those things can. And that's really, and that's what I think so, can keep trying to tell them. Right.
Yeah, but what you are doing now is trying to find parameters for function. If you deal on parameters, then you are hampering your own creativity, your inspiration, because you have already a preconceived idea as to what should be. And you rationalizing it by saying that this individual is not yet ready because he must first be psychotherapeutized along Adlerian lines or along Sullivanian lines. And after this is true, maybe then, but you're already crippling your own creative responsiveness. By setting up parameters in your mind, it's to how to proceed.
That doesn't sound like what I'm feeling. I think I was thinking the way that these friends acts always the one that sometimes the friend that sits on inside the that's the present has the effect of allowing one guy to open up just the present itself, not leaving on the ground, but become aware of how up can be.
Well, what other thoughts do you have? You score. I don't even believe that. Yeah. There is, of course, a great tendency to think that in order to be a spiritual guide, one must first be a psychotherapist. But if that were true, then you would have no business being here, unless you have already retired from psychotherapy, like I did. You see, I'm the only one who has the right to be here. But the glorious thing about spiritual guidance is that it transcends all psychotherapy. And a spiritual guide doesn't have to be a psychotherapy. Spiritual guide has to be a divinely inspired understander and clarifier of an individual's mode of being in the world. Now, this may be a frightening prospect, I grant you that. But after all, you are here and you are here to learn something. Somebody would say, well, you have to, if you want to run, you have to first learn to walk. But you see, in spiritual guidance, we want to fly. It says, somebody asked the Zen master Suzuki, how does it feel to be an enlightened man? And Suzuki says, oh, just like ordinary, except about 2 inches above ground.
Now you're describing what I was trying to say. I've really depended on narrative and somehow that's better than you. I wonder if what Marshall was saying was just the fact, why have a spiritual guidance unless it can realize God himself. That there is something we do to help you bring him realize.
Yes.
Otherwise, there'd be no need for it at all.
Yes. Well, it is a very rare grace and blessing if some people are reached by the Spirit by themselves. But most of us need some contact with a quality of consciousness which is already spiritualized sufficiently to begin to appreciate what is involved here.
But I also heard that in much of thing what there is until a person can have a sense of the inner monitor, access to divine guidance within, very often needs to borrow the confidence or the faith or the confirmation
from a loving guide. Well, certainly, of course. But let's not confuse that with psychotherapy. Right? Because psychotherapy is a bird of a different feather. It's a bird that cannot fly. All right, we have about 10 minutes. You want to test it?
Well, this is something that I would like my own self. And you said that these attributes was not but and that I showed that it no, I mean and it takes the breaks down the values.
Yeah.
But is this just a step by step kind of rope thing that we could test kind of learn to let go and then this whole time concentrate?
Yeah, I like to use the analogy of floating on water. Yeah, you read about it. It's like learning to float. You can go very slowly and proceed slowly and hold on to something until you learn it. The floating is completely leaning on buoyancy. And so it is with God. And we lean on God and we lean on seemingly nothing. Now some people get the hang of it right away. And they can float. At least in the water. But essentially, an analogy which approximates this thing of letting go of all the little idols which we cherish and which we cling to, and throwing away the rabbit's foot which we have in our purse, maybe rabbit's foot or a plastic Jesus or something. You throw all these things away and you face life with nothing but God. Yeah.
In the clock, that's
The front.
from that.
Yeah.
And but see, like that says like the Hora kind of but yeah, I think just there actually this was the talk with and was as the coming will be you see how things comes to be as the same kind of
Mhm. Well, I'm glad you brought up the issue of time, because that is another problem which is very interesting to consider. That is called the issue of temporality. Temporality is closely associated with character. Interestingly enough. Who wouldn't think that possible? There are three categories of character disorders which we are inclined to suffer from. One is pride, the other is ambition, and the third is vanity. Now, if we inquire into the temporality of these character disorders, then we find that pride is always related to the past. To the past. Ambition is always oriented towards the future, right? And vanity,
Right now.
right now, is in the present. Isn't this interesting? People who live in the past are inclined towards pride. People who look forward to the future have a tendency to become ambitious. And people who live in the present like to look in the mirror. How am I looking now? Now, associated with these three categories of character problems, there is also the flip side of each. Pride, what is the flip side of pride?
Humility.
Shame.
Oh.
What is the flip side of ambition?
Stare or proof of you.
Fear. What is the flip side of vanity?
Hysterically.
Embarrassment. Now, if we tell somebody, look here, you are proud. Your problem is that you are proud. Will he be able to stop being proud?
Too likely.
Not likely, right? If we tell somebody, you are vain, will he be able to stop being vain? No. And the same with ambition. These character problems do not respond to a direct attack. Yeah?
And if this one judges oneself, and in fact, it brings out the surprise of that person.
Right.
And say, you are proud, and you're ashamed.
Right.
And you're vain.
Yeah.
You're offended.
Yeah. Now, that is it therapeutically helpful? No, it doesn't get you anywhere.
Actually, you're still dealing with the same problem.
Exactly. Exactly. So here we run into a problem. In psychotherapy, these problems become horrendous because they're unyielding.
But very insightful said, what is a valid way to observe them to clarify.
Yeah.
Sure what that person is here. It obviously doesn't seem pointed out.
He said, well, of course we can talk about it without condemning it, nor demanding that somebody stop being proud or ambitious.
What does it really mean?
Right. Right. We don't say you shouldn't be proud, or you shouldn't be ambitious, or you shouldn't be vain. We can say, I discern that your suffering has something to do with certain way of relating to time. Some people could say, if this that you are living is the past, or you're thinking too much about the past, and yourself in the past, or in the future, you're future-oriented, or you are living in the present and preoccupied with, and your problems seem to be connected with your temporality. Now, we don't say, look, you shouldn't live in the past. You shouldn't live in the future. You shouldn't. We don't say that. We try to clarify an individual's problems, how they are connected with his way of thinking about time, the clock. Now, does the Bible help us with the problem of time? Yes, John?
Eternal thereof.
Yes.
Not
How would this help?
find that.
You can now recall that our definition of mental health speaks of being a beneficial presence. Now, a presence is not the same as living in the present. But a very helpful passage from the Bible is from the book of Ecclesiastes. Who said? Yes, it said, that which had been is not, and that which is to be has already been. But God requireth that which is past.
Read it again.
God requireth that which is past.
The second line.
That which is to be has already been. It describes the problem of being time-bound. The unenlightened man is stuck in the dimension of time. But reality is timeless. Therefore, if we are time-bound, we cannot be in touch with reality. So the only way to be healed of pride, ambition, and vanity is to abolish time. How do we abolish time? Anybody? Even while we are checking on our watch whether it's time for coffee, we can still abolish time.
By not allowing time to control our life?
Well, I will put this way. By learning to appreciate timelessness. You see, in creative living, in inspired living, the temporospatial coordinates of experience are suspended. Whenever God speaks to us, at the instant when inspiration reaches consciousness, the temporospatial coordinates of existence, of experience, are suspended. Does anybody know the works of Minkowski? Eugene Minkowski, the French phenomenology. This was his contribution to phenomenology. He discovered the abolishing of the temporal-spatial coordinate of experience. His work is called le temps vécu, lived time. Anyway, by learning to appreciate timelessness, we become liberated from the imprisoning effect of time. And we are healed of these very three common forms of character disorder.
Mention fear, first, not guilt.
No. Guilt is not a time problem. Guilt is a problem of self-confirmatory ideation. When you say, I feel guilty, you're bragging.
You what?
You're bragging.
I couldn't even know.
Beg your pardon?
It didn't occur to me that that really is right. I never thought of it that way.
You want to take that up?
Would never have
What?
Then you get
Yes, okay. It's time.